What's going on, 59 Gaming, and welcome to another gaming related video. Today we're going to talk about some of the news that's out about the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. We're going to start by going through some of Nibel's tweets. He always posts a lot of good info, so I think this is a great place to start. And then we'll go into PC Gamer's article about it to get some more detailed information. To start out though, we finally got a launch date. It's May 14th, which is a lot sooner than I expected and a lot sooner than I think many people expected. So it's exciting that we get to enjoy it so soon. Fills in some of that time slot for us. But let's get into some more of the details here. He, of course, includes all 3 games with over 40 DLCs. And that's the content, the weapons, the armor, the packs. All of that should be included in the Legendary Edition. Along with that, we have some updated visuals, 4K HDR, overhauled visuals, and enhanced performance. New models, shaders, effects, lighting, and DOF. Improved customization. Of course, that means for your commander. And you'll be able to play as FemShep in all 3 games instead of just the 3rd one. And along with that, there's some weapon rebalance and some better Mako controls, which I can appreciate. The Mako was pretty terrible to control back in the day. So let's look at some of these pictures that we have for reference. Here is one from the original game. And here it is updated. Of course, you add a beautiful line like that into any game, and all of a sudden it's prettier and better. Moving on. The original Mass Effect has been updated the most from a visual standpoint. BioWare actually utilized an AI upscale program to update all the textures in all 3 titles, both in size and quality, which is very exciting. So, I'll remove my camera for a second so you can get the full picture, because I'm covering up the map. So this is the original design. I'm sure many people are familiar with it. A little bit archaic. Going on to the new one. This is clearly updated. A much more simpler UI. Very easy to understand design. So, all in all, of course, it looks better. Just, taking each piece individually and then looking at it. There's a lot to appreciate here. So that's exciting. That looks really good. Let's bring me back. Hello. Continuing on. One of the biggest Mass Effect Legendary Edition reveals today. The loading times inside the lift up to the Citadel's Presidium level has been reduced from 52 seconds to 14. A big deal if you're somebody who's enjoyed these games before, or if you're someone who just doesn't like load times. 52 seconds is a long time. I would count it right now for you, but I think you'd leave the video. So let's move on. That's a long time. So that's honestly, that's a big deal. Next Gen has been very big about promoting lowering load times. So that's honestly really cool. One of the more interesting pieces of information, they talk about potentially bringing it to the Switch at some point. On Switch, Walters doesn't roll out Legendary Edition for Nintendo's console down the road, perhaps when it has more powerful hardware to help show off the trilogy's new visuals, maybe like the Switch Pro, but said the remaster project had got off the ground on PC and existing consoles, and it was BioWare's mission to get these working first. Personally, I love it, he said, but ultimately, I think we had a path set, and it was like, let's finish that, then let's sort of see where we're at, which I think is a good way to go about it. No need to really add a whole lot to your plate when you already have the core game set to work on those, and you can bring it down onto the Switch later, hopefully with the Switch Pro. That'd be a very cool title to have for that. And of course, Nibel finishes it off with some very good-looking Game Informer posters, covers, I mean. I collected these when I was younger, and I still have some of my favorite cover arts today, and they're just always super good. I love seeing what Game Informer comes up with for their cover. So that's exciting. Now let's get into a little bit more details, talking of course about the release date, what's in the Legendary Edition, talking more about the visual stuff we talked about already, and then they begin to talk about, is it a remake or a remaster? Let's get into that. They say it's complicated. The original Mass Effect game has received a more substantial touching up than Mass Effect 2 and 3, primarily around the combat system and UI, some things we saw earlier. This makes sense, as the first game was more of an RPG, and the sequels greatly improved the combat, so Mass Effect 1 is receiving something of a rework. The game's UI and various interfaces have been overhauled, and combat and exploration brought in line with the sequel's improvements. Better aiming, squad controls, team AI, and camera positioning. On the last point, for example, you'd commonly take cover in that game and get a brief view of the interior of Shepard's skull. No more. Finally, and perhaps most wanted of all, the handling of the Mako surface vehicle has been overhauled. Something I think many people will appreciate if they've been playing these games for a long time. So they're kind of getting into all that. Kind of specifying this. The second two games will be pretty similar, but the first one is the main overhaul. Something I know a lot of people are probably wondering about: the multiplayer mode from Mass Effect 3. It's a very loved by some, and so they said they're not going to be bringing it to the trilogy. And I think they have some good reasons why. We looked at it, what it would take to do that, says Mac Walters, project director. What do we do with crossplay? What do we do with people playing multiplayer now? How do we honor that, bring them in, bridge the gap? Talking about people who still play multiplayer on the original. And of course, these aren't insurmountable changes, but when you looked at the amount of effort that it was going to take to do that, it was easily better, if not greater, than, for example, uplifting all of ME1. So clearly the choice here is to expand on the single player experience, which I think is the better move, what these games are known for, than to add a multiplayer mode. Maybe that's something they could add down the line, but I think they were very focused on the single player experience and enhancing that as much as possible. Continuing on, he says, I think our focus really was on the single player experience, and at some point we had to just draw the line. There was a lot of, I love ME3 multiplayer. Like I say, people are still playing it today, but ultimately I think the product, the overall Legendary Edition, is a better representation of the original trilogy because they were able to focus on the single player elements. I think that's perfectly fine. I think a lot of people might want that, but they can still play it in the, original one. But I think this was the better move. Focus on the single player experience and enhancing that for older and newer players. Talking about cut content from the originals and if they would make it. They said not really much of that is going to be in it. It's mostly what the content we already know. And they did say that Mass Effect 3 will be the extended cut. He says the extended cut will be the experience for everyone playing ME Legendary Edition. To me, the extended cut was really that opportunity to add a little more love, a little more context about the ending. So to me, that's canon. So cool, we get the extended cut instead of the, original. And let's see here. They talk some more about the character customization, speaking to being able to play as female Shepard in the original. And one of the more interesting and I think important parts they talk about is it's a passion project. The BioWare is kind of infamous now for Mass Effect Andromeda, Anthem. And so in the past couple of years, a lot of people have lost faith in BioWare, saying they don't really trust the studio anymore, or not as excited to see what's in it. But BioWare at this presentation tried to focus more on some of their oldest developers who have been there since KOTOR, who have worked on the original Mass Effects and stuff like that. People who have been there through Anthem as well and have learned these lessons. And I think that's good for them. They talk about this game being a passion project. They've learned from each game how to make these games better. And I'm sure there's plenty of lessons they learned making the original trilogy, wishing they could go back and redo the first one. And this is what they're able to do now. So I think that's exciting. When video game development comes from more of a passion than a pushing deadlines and dates and stuff like that, I think you get better results. So this is exciting. I'm very excited for this. I can't wait to dive back into that world and play as Shepard again. But let me know what you think. Comment down in the comments. I'll try and interact with you, try and have a conversation, figure out what everybody thinks and what we can expect from this. Of course, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the 5-9 Gaming channel. We're trying to push more general gaming content, news and stuff, things that we find important, that we also think you would find important and interesting. As well, we're on Twitch. Follow us on there. We're streaming almost 24/7, probably like 27 right about now. We're getting close to being there all the time. And there's always something fun going on over there. And then lastly, always make sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date with what we're doing and what you can expect from us. But for me, that's about it. I was Claire Bear. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you're excited for this new release. And until then, I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.